Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you're very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. And this is the last video I'll be making in 2020. I will next be speaking to you all in 2021. Next Friday is Christmas Day, and so I'll be taking all of next week to spend time with my family, in particular, of course, with my new son, who is now 3 months old. I can scarcely believe where the time has gone. But as we are running up to Christmas, I thought that today's video should be suitably festive. So let's talk about Christmas Day 1066. But before we get into the holly jollies of it all, I think it's appropriate that we look into the events that led up to that very special Christmas Day, and in particular, the records of that event. Let's go. On the 5th of January 1066, the king, Edward the Confessor, dies. A number of contenders vied for Edward the Confessor's throne following his death. Edward had left behind no son to follow him on that throne. There was Harold Godwinson, Earl of Wessex. He was Edward the Confessor's brother-in-law. Harold Godwinson was the brother of Edward's wife, Edith of Wessex. Harold's coronation took place at Westminster Abbey and was conducted by the Archbishop of York. It took place with lightning speed on the 6th of January 1066, just one day after his predecessor's death. It seemed clear to me that there was a desire to settle matters quickly. Harold's kingship was supported by a council of leading nobles and churchmen, known as the Witan. Harold Godwinson's claim to the throne comes from a supposed deathbed intervention made by Edward the Confessor himself. In short, it is said that Edward the Confessor named Harold Godwinson as the heir to his throne. However, as we shall see, he was not the only person who could make such a claim. Before we look at those claims, let's look at the claim of Harald Hadrada. He was at the time King of Norway, and as you may have noticed, his first name is remarkably similar to Harold Godwinson. For that reason, I will be referring to him as Hadrada. Hadrada hoped to press a claim to the English throne that was based on a supposed agreement made between a former King of England, one Arthur Canute, who was king from 1040 to 1042, and Hadrada's own predecessor as King of Norway, King Magnus. Hadrada joined up with Harold Godwinson's own brother Tostig in order to invade England. Harold Godwinson and his troops would put down the invasion. His rival Hadrada and rebellious brother Tostig would both be killed at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, which took place on September 25th, 1066. Another candidate for the throne of England was Edgar the Atheling. Edgar was the grandson of Edward the Confessor's half-brother, Edmund Ironside. Edward the Confessor and Edmund Ironside shared the same royal father, Ethelred II, known as the Unready. Despite Edgar's royal blood, he was not top of the list as a candidate following Edward the Confessor's death. Perhaps this was in part due to the fact that he was still just in his early teens when his great-uncle died. Nevertheless, he would be proclaimed king after the death of Harold Godwinson at the Battle of Hastings, of which more in a moment. But Edgar would find that he would have to submit to the claim of a rival king before too long. That king would come to be known as William the Conqueror, and it is his claim that we are going to explore now. Edward the Confessor's mother's brother was the grandfather of William, Duke of Normandy. William's father, Robert, was, however, not married to his mother, Herleva. It is said that because of this, he was known as William the Bastard, although probably not to his face. Despite this, and the fact that he was a child of only around 8 when his father died, William was recognised as his father's heir to the Duchy of Normandy. However, it would not be plain sailing to hold that title for many years to come. In asserting his right to sit on the English throne as king, William alleged that Edward the Confessor had named him as his heir, and that Harold Godwinson, the man who was now sitting on that throne, had made a solemn vow to support his claim. Assured of the righteousness of his claim, William set sail for England with papal blessing and around 700 ships full of troops. On the morning of the 14th of October 1066, William's troops met with Harold Godwinson's in a field near Hastings. It was less than 3 weeks since Harold Godwinson's troops had defeated Harold Hadrada's invasion at Stamford Bridge. For them to reach William on the Sussex coast from Stamford Bridge was a journey of nearly 200 miles. As I am sure we are all aware, William won the day at Hastings, and for this victory he is remembered by history as William the Conqueror. However, his success was not yet assured. He was not yet King of England, because in the aftermath of Harold Godwinson's death, the Witan elected another successor, Edgar the Atheling. He had now been named King of England. To deal with this, William sets off for London. The journey of William, Duke of Normandy, to sit on the English throne as King William I is memorialised in what may be one of the most famous pieces of fabric on the face of the earth, the Bayeux Tapestry. Despite the name, it should perhaps be more properly known as the Bayeux embroidery, as it was not woven on a loom. Rather, it has been hand-stitched. It is almost 70 metres long, about 70 centimetres wide, and we can see that it was sewn in separate sections and joined up later. Perhaps to our modern eyes it has the most in common with a comic strip, where one narrative event runs into another. In the beginning, we are shown Edward the Confessor dispatching Harold Godwinson to Normandy. We are then shown Harold's capture by Guy, the Count of Ponthieu. Guy takes Harold to William, Duke of Normandy, and hands him over. Harold then accompanies William into battle against the Duke of Brittany. The Duke of Brittany is shown surrendering. William rewards Harold's service by presenting him with a gift of arms. This was a ceremonial act that allegedly, at least in the minds of the people viewing it at the time, would have asserted William's place as Harold's overlord. In the next scene, Harold is shown engaging in the swearing of a sacred ritual oath over holy relics. Is this intended to represent the alleged promise that Harold made to support William as heir of England? Next, Harold makes his return to England and to Edward the Confessor. We see Edward's death and Harold's coronation. Halley's comet blazes ominously in the top border. News of Harold Godwinson's coronation is brought to William. We see William set sail, prepare for battle, fight, and win. Some argue that part of this embroidery from the end is missing, although perhaps just the one scene. The narrative in this fabric document is one that arguably supports William's own assertions about the promises made to him and his right to succeed Edward the Confessor on the English throne. A number of people have been suggested as the commissioners of this work. William himself may have commissioned it to celebrate his victory and to assert his right to rule. Alternatively, for many years it was imagined and asserted that William's own wife Matilda and her court ladies embroidered it themselves as their own form of celebration. Among contemporary scholars, the favoured candidate as the possible patron for this work is William's younger half-brother, Bishop Odo of Bayeux. The argument in favour of him as the patron is down to just how much he features in the events depicted, perhaps more than he was actually present. David Musgrove points to the oath scene, which in the embroidery is shown to be taking place in Bayeux itself, where, of course, Odo was bishop. But this differs from the account of the location of this alleged oath-taking present in other documents. Another potential patron to have been suggested also features in the embroidery: Edith, the widow of Edward the Confessor. Did she potentially commission a puff piece to endear herself to the man who now occupied her former husband's throne? A husband who may, if certain accounts are correct, have made her position as his widow more difficult by promising his throne to more than one candidate. Whoever the patron actually was, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments section underneath the video, the tapestry is believed to have been created soon after the Battle of Hastings, in England and by English embroiderers. To see the original, you will have to travel to France and the Bayeux Museum. However, a Victorian replica of the Bayeux Tapestry was made and is housed at the Reading Museum. As a side note, a fun bonus, a little bit of optional extra reading that will hopefully tide you over as I won't be uploading a video next week, I will be leaving this article linked in my description box. It's by Professor George Garnett, and it was originally hosted on historyextra.com. As you can see, this article is about the 93 penises that feature in the Bayeux Tapestry. Proof, if we ever needed it, that there is in fact a hobby out there for everyone. So while it would appear that somebody or some bodies were willing and able to embroider 93 penises into this work, there is, it seems to me, one moment that is missing. Perhaps it is that last scene that people think should be there. Are we missing an image of William's own coronation? And if we are, then that's where we get to the holly jolly Christmas of it all. Because William the Conqueror was crowned King of England on Christmas Day 1066. And we have this account of the event. It comes from Odoric Vitalis, the Anglo-French chronicler of Norman England. Odoric was born in 1075, so that's 9 years after the conquest. Therefore, he was obviously not present at the coronation itself. However, his version of events, his story, is the one that is most often referred to and seemingly trusted by contemporary scholars. He tells us, "So at last, on Christmas Day in the year of our Lord 1066, the English assembled at London for the King's coronation, and a strong guard of Norman men-at-arms and knights was posted round the minster to prevent any treachery or disorder. And in the presence of the bishops, abbots and nobles of the whole realm of Albion, Archbishop Eldred consecrated William, Duke of Normandy, as King of the English, and placed the royal crown upon his head. This was done in the Abbey Church of St Peter, the chief of the Apostles, called Westminster, where the body of King Edward lies honourably buried. But at the prompting of the devil, who hates everything good, a sudden disaster and portent of future catastrophes occurred. For when Archbishop Eldred asked the English, and Geoffrey, Bishop of Coutances, asked the Normans if they would accept William as their king, all of them gladly shouted out with one voice, if not in one language, that they would. The armed guard outside, hearing the tumult of the joyful crowd in the church and the harsh accents of a foreign tongue, imagined that some treachery was afoot, and rashly set fire to some of the buildings. The fire spread rapidly from house to house. The crowd, who had been rejoicing in the church, took fright, and throngs of men and women of every rank and condition rushed out of the church in frantic haste. Only the bishops and a few clergy and monks remained, terrified, in the sanctuary, and with difficulty completed the consecration of the king, who was trembling from head to foot. Almost all the rest made for the scene of conflagration, some to fight the flames, and many others hoping to find loot for themselves in the general confusion. The English, after hearing of the perpetration of such misdeeds, never again trusted the Normans, who seemed to have betrayed them, but nursed their anger and bided their time to take revenge. Because what says Merry Christmas more than having your brand new monarch's men burn down your house and your friends and neighbours turn up to loot it? How festive. But what do you think? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversation in the comments section underneath this video. Or you can come and find me over on my social media. I'll leave links to my Instagram and Twitter in the description box. Follow me there and we can continue this conversation. I do hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up. Please also subscribe to this channel and also check that you are still subscribed if you intend to be. I've heard that YouTube is unsubscribing people against their will. While you're there checking or subscribing, why not also hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button so that YouTube tells you when I've next uploaded. I hope you're all going to have a great day and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video in 2021. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.